This is a career blog about another Nintendo related type of thing. Hope you enjoy. All right, so this is a fairly recent question I got from Ashley Grant on the Terrain of Magical Expertise Facebook page. Hello, Kerr, big fan of Tome. A suggestion I have for a future Kerr blog is what was your memories of a cartoon called Captain N? And if there was an animated show that would be a remake, reboot, or a concept similar to this, which animation studio would you think would make it? Which video game characters would you like to see in it? And what themes, plots, characteristics, issues, etc. would you like the animation team to explore/tackle? So I'm actually going to completely subvert this topic, but before I do that, I'm going to answer it. I have seen Captain N, the Game Master. I did not grow up with it. It was a little bit before my time, and unfortunately there was no way for me to really see it until way later when I caught it on YouTube. So I've seen several episodes of it, but it wasn't really like ingrained in my childhood like a lot of the other Nintendo-related animated series. I did grow up with all the Mario cartoons. I grew up with the Donkey Kong Country series, which I talked about recently, and of course Pokemon. And believe it or not, even the Zelda cartoon, a babysitter of mine had like some episodes taped, which I had seen through that way. But I did not grow up with Captain N. My memories of it are just watching episodes on YouTube and, obviously seeing stuff like Nostalgia Critic's review of it and everything. It was a really, really cool concept that I probably would have been absolutely in love with as a kid. Wasn't that great of a show, to be totally honest. It's certainly amusing and makes for some funny jokes and everything. But on that same note, I also don't think that we'll ever get anything quite like it ever again. I think that the closest thing that we ever really have gotten to it has, funnily enough, just been Super Smash Brothers. Something like the Subspace Emissary story, from Brawl, which was fantastic, and I still go back and watch that once in a while. We're prone to getting stuff like that. We almost got it in the form of Wonderful 101, which I'm kind of glad ended up not being the case because that game is fantastic and I think worked much better as its own original story. But that said, I am going to go into another. I'm going to tell a little story that I really haven't shared with very many people at all. I think that only probably Mike Lucas is the one person that knows really anything about this. So this is really going way, 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 way back into my childhood. About a little thing that I came up with as a young kid, inspired by my love of Super Smash Brothers at the tail end of elementary school for me. Called Nintendo Quest, or as I like to remember it as more or less the ultimate fangasm, fan fiction, fantasy bullshit game idea ever in existence. Now, I'm sure a lot of like hardcore Nintendo fans when they were kids probably dreamed of something like this. Maybe they still want something like this, beyond just Super Smash Brothers, but basically, it started as when the first one had come out. I think it was '99. I think was when the first Smash had come out. I was just like head over heels for the idea of like having a big crossover with all these different characters all together in one thing. And this whole idea because when I was a kid, in addition to just doing stories and show ideas and etc., I came up with a lot of different ideas for games. Many of which were ones that I'd never be able to do because a lot of them were like, fan game ideas of, different things like that for like pre-existing Nintendo characters or whatever. But yeah, I the very earliest incarnation of this was just something directly off of Smash, where like all the playable characters were going to be, pretty much the main 8 from that game, probably minus Samus, because unfortunately I did not really grow up with Metroid games until after I was introduced to Samus, through the first Smash Brothers game. So I have played other ones by now, but in this early form when, this would have been like 1999, 2000 maybe, that's kind of what it was. So as a kid, I used to draw up a lot of like, paper, level concepts and like maps for like different platforming stages and 3D levels and things, because I used to collect a lot of player's guides for the different games that I played growing up. So that very much inspired that. I think the very first iteration was that you'd be able to choose between all the different playable, different Nintendo characters or whatever, and you'd have to go through. You basically have to like play through the actual games that a lot of them came from. So I basically just imagined like, you could play as like Mario, Link, Donkey Kong, Yoshi, Kirby, Fox, Pikachu, etc. through all the levels of Mario 64 and get all 120 stars and go through all of Donkey Kong Country and complete everything and go through all of Diddy Kong Racing or, Ocarina of Time, etc. Just like going through every single bit of that. That was the very first version of it, which is utterly ridiculous. Like, that'd be a complete clusterfuck of a game if that was ever made. And then I think after that I tried thinking about, okay, if this were really to be a thing that exists, what would it be like? I don't think I ever really had any inclination of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make this someday and just like make this game magically. I don't think I had any kind of realistic, intention like that or anything necessarily. But I guess I think it was more of just a creative exercise, if anything. But then after that, I started thinking about, okay, how would I actually go about it? So then I just, kind of reduced it to like, a platformer game where you would, again, have all those playable characters, but you would go through about 5 different stages from each of them. So if you think of like in Mario Galaxy, they had the Throwback Galaxy, which was literally just the Whomp's Fortress stage from Mario 64, and it was kind of designed in a way that you could go through it once, like as a singular level, and then just get to the end and do it. It was kind of like that. So I basically came up with like 5 different stages from Mario 64, Donkey Kong Country, Hey You Pikachu, which was the kind of equivalent, Pokemon level with 3D environments you could go through. Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, probably Kirby Superstar, and I think Yoshi's Story. And then I guess also just different levels from like the Lylat system in Star Fox 64 as well. And and then of course also obviously having all of the the villains from each appropriate stage be somebody you'd have to go, fight against, Bowser, K. Rool, Wizpig, Kamek, Mewtwo, King Dedede, Ganondorf, Andross, etc., all the usual ones. The next incarnation of it, which actually I think might have even been part of that first one, or the second one with the 5 different levels from each game or whatever, can't entirely remember, but there was also like a central hub island of some kind in the middle where the characters would have to go through there, and before they could progress to each different region, it was basically my way of tying all of the different Nintendo worlds together into one plane of existence somehow, which I know doesn't realistically even work in the first place, but realistically, when I say like in the context of the games that they come from, I don't think that really they all exist within the same planet or world or whatever. But either way, I had like some kind of like central island on the planet Nintendo, I guess, if you want to declare it that, with just having all this stuff together. And like, oh, okay, when you get this item, you can, I think the only one I remember was like you'd have to like get some kind of like technical machine to teach Machoke, who was like some Machoke that was owned by some random trainer in the central island, to open up a gate that would lead to like going to Kanto, and then you could go to do all the Pokemon stuff or whatever. So there was that. And then probably the most like in-depth iteration that I had was in the wake of 2 major games coming out. Melee, of course, which was, just continuing onward the obsession with these characters all being in a game together. And then Kingdom Hearts, the first Kingdom Hearts coming out. It's funny because I didn't even remember to say at the beginning of this, the whole reason I was doing this one is because, number one, it was just Mario's 30th anniversary in tandem with Mario Maker and everything. And then I was also just the other day playing Kingdom Hearts HD with Ben Diskin and his girlfriend Heather. So this perfectly fits together. But Kingdom Hearts was also, I think, kind of like extrapolating upon the whole concept, and it was further fleshing out my whole idea of like, oh, what would it be like if it was, all these places together in one world or whatever. So the next thing I'd come up with was I think it was like one giant continent, or maybe like many different continents all on one planet of again the planet Nintendo, if you want to declare it that. So the story concept I came up with in this one is that it was ironically, and I don't think it was even, it might not have been inspired by Captain Nintendo. Maybe it was. Maybe by that point I'd heard about Captain N and it was kind of like a spiritual successor to that or something. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, it had the familiar concept of a real life human boy gets transported inside of the the video game world by some bullshit reason or whatever. And so this very original character that I came up with, who actually he looked a lot like Chrono. And therefore, he also was kind of the precursor to the design of Alpha when I was doing the original TV Tome Adventures. So what I'm about to talk about, this final iteration of Nintendo Quest, as I'd come up with it, I believe actually predates TV Tome Adventures. Even like in its like design phase of TV Tome Adventures, I believe it actually predates that. Just like as an idea. But either way, yeah. So Tendo was this playable character that you would go as, and he had the red spiky hair like Chrono and the blue outfit and everything. And I hadn't even played Chrono Trigger at that point yet. I was still just like, oh, but Toriyama's artwork is amazing because Dragon Ball Z and blah blah blah. So Kingdom Hearts, Super Smash Brothers, Dragon Ball Z all rolled up together. Clearly, I was a very disturbed 12-year-old. And by disturbed, I just mean incredibly unoriginal. But anyway, so Tendo gets brought into the Nintendo world. Seeing a pattern here. And so he arrives in this big golden metropolis, New York City, I guess, type area called Famicom City. And he arrives just in time for this giant alienatic black spike of death to come down from out of the sky, and it slams into the big skyscraper in the middle of the city, and it extends these gross tree barky type, like, black infectious virus things. Even the virus thing might have come from this too, for all I know. Maybe this was the origin of both Alpha and the Shadow Guard beast, for all I can think. And then through some bullshit circumstance, Tendo is given the Power Glove, the special, like, big gauntlet version of the Power Glove item, the actual peripheral you could get for Nintendo back in the day, with the ability to gain these crests on the side of on like the knuckle, kind of like the Infinity Gauntlet or whatever, the Infinity Stones and all that from Marvel. And he would go around collecting them from all the different Nintendo worlds and all that shit, and he'd have to build them all up and, destroy the evil that was infecting all the different regions and fight against all the bad guys who had been infected by it. And along the way, he would join forces with the likes of Mario from Mario, and Link from Zelda, and Pikachu from Pikachu, and Donkey Kong from Donkey Kong, and Kirby from Kirby, and Mario, Donkey Kong, Kirby, but Rick and Morty, 10,000 years. Anyway, so that was it was a Kingdom Hearts type setup where you go from world to world and they join up with you, etc., and then go around. It's, all that. By this point, because Bowser was made into a playable character in Melee, and I had already grown to, Bowser was basically my favorite Nintendo character ever. I just, by that point, made him into, like, a good guy who reluctantly joins up with you again. And as such, of course, you go to specifically the Mario RPG version of the Mushroom Kingdom that will never be used again because, it just wouldn't be. And Smithy is back somehow. Oh my god, I'm 14 and this is what I want out of life. Okay. That probably wasn't even 14 yet. I think it was like 12, 13 or whatever. But anyway. And then, Super Mario World / Yoshi's Island. You can fight against Kamek at the end, or Magic Koopa. DK Island, fight King K. Rool at the end. Hyrule, you'd fight Ganondorf at the end with, Adult Link, etc. Who'd come back through some, unexplainable, unequivocal reason. Based on my obsession at the time, I think the one I was the most excited for was going through all of Kanto and Johto and fighting against infected versions of all of the Pokemon gym leaders with whatever their, their top Pokemon was, and then probably fighting against Mewtwo at the end. And then after you would have freed all those different areas from the infected thing, and you would go to the central part of the city in Famicom City, and you'd fight against the spike that was infecting the thing, and you'd hit it up, and then you would have to go out into space, and then you'd have to go to Popstar and fight DDD and Marks, and then you'd have to go to Mute City and fight Black Shadow with Captain Falcon, and then go to Planet Zebes and fight Mother Brain, and go to the Lylat system and fight Andross. And here's the most embarrassing part. I think I even had, as the Star Fox character that would join you, was like the kid of Fox and Crystal, which, I mean, I guess somebody eventually did that in Star Fox Command. I mean, to give myself a little bit more credit, I made them the daughter of Fox and Crystal, as opposed to the son, like in that one alternate stupid ending from Star Fox Command. But I was no better, so either way. And of course, along the way, there was this mysterious fighting Polygon character who was, stalking you and giving you hints about what was really going on. And then you'd go back up, and after you finished, freeing the rest of the whole galaxy and the rest of the solar system around, Nintendo and everything, you would have to, go further up and, beyond the cosmos, and you'd have to fight against the source of the monster. And all I remember of that was I drew some absolutely ridiculous looking, like, grotesque looking monster that would come out of the it might have been inspired by Kubia from the .hack PS2 games, but it was just this gross ass monster that was coming out of this giant golden fortress Nintendo logo thing. It was absolutely terrifying and stupid looking, but that was the boss you'd fight against. And then I can't remember exactly how this went from there on out, but more or less it was something along the lines of there was you'd fight against the true force behind Master Hand and Crazy Hand, of which was not Master Core yet, because that would have been 15 years later necessarily, but yeah, something like that. And I think also Mike came up with this idea when we were joking about what would Smash 3 be like, whatever's going to happen with that one. And we had Dark Master Hand and Mecha Crazy Hand, controlled by the mysterious business suit wearing man that would be controlling the two hands or whatever, was the absolute final boss behind absolutely everything, who brought you into the video game world. Ooh. I think the very, very, very last idea that I had for this entire stupid concept basically was maybe going back and instead of having the other Nintendo characters join you like the Kingdom Hearts, the other team members would be the Disney characters you meet in each individual world. I think what I had in place of that at one point was having these two other kid characters that were also brought into the video game world by the master behind Master Hand and Crazy Hand. I don't even think I had a name for that character. But the other two, I think one of them was a girl who you'd meet in like Kanto or Johto, who was a Pokemon trainer, and then the other one was going to be another kid who was up in space, who's like a competitive gamer, and it would be like I don't want to say it was inspired by Naruto, because I probably wasn't even into Naruto at the time yet, but it was definitely like that, ninja trio type of thing, where it was like the red kid with the power glove, and the blue girl with the Pokeballs and Pokemon team and items and stuff, and then the green kid with like the super scope or something. I think they all had like the different like peripherals or something like that, probably some stupid bullshit like that. But either way, that was about as far as it had gone. And then by that point, I was like, I think I was just beginning to get into high school, and I was like, okay, hey, here's an idea. Why don't I start coming up with my own shit and not thinking unrealistically about how I'm going to ever actually do this, because it's never going to fucking happen. But it was a lot of fun just to like come up with, and like I had a lot of maps, and unfortunately I don't have any remnants of it. I would even have to go back home and find all of it in the first place, but I don't think it's probably all gone by this point, like just lost to the ether realm or whatever. But yeah, I remember, I think the most that came out of it was I drew a giant like poster, because I used to love drawing big posters with a million characters on it. I believe I had one that had like a bazillion, all the different characters, all the different Nintendo characters, and maybe even a big map of everything where it's like all the different locations and all the bad guys up at the top and all that stuff. I might have had that somewhere, but unfortunately it's probably just lost to the sands of time by this point, unfortunately. But yeah, Wonderful 101 would have been really interesting, I think, if it ended up being what it was supposed to be when it was conceived, which was going to be the same type of game, but using all the different Nintendo characters in that kind of Smash Brothers style of crossover and everything. But again, kind of like how I learned myself, I'm very glad that they ultimately went with designing their own characters and not using all these existing ones, because it lent itself to a completely new and much more amazing story. And that's certainly not to compare myself, because the next big story I came up with after I had finished Nintendo Quest and put it to rest forever, put the quest to rest, I think the next big thing I'd come up with was TTA, which is not an amazing story by any way, shape, or form, and frankly, neither is Tome, even continuing off of that, but, I mean, I'm proud of Tome, of course, but you know what I mean. But, yeah, it's certainly something to aspire to, and it was a fun little creative exercise, and I guess it was just a signification of just how much I really loved. I still do. I still love Nintendo, and all these different characters. And Mario Maker really is kind of an amazing celebration of all that stuff. Even past just Smash Brothers, because Mario is like the core of where it all comes from for me. If anything, more so than any other other Nintendo series I've ever been into. I'm fighting off the crippling addiction of wanting to get Mario Maker so badly, because I've been playing it in friends' houses. I've been playing it on at Andrew Dickman's place and Ash Paulson just recently. God damn it is addictive. I need to keep myself away from it. But that's going to wrap us up. So I guess in the comments below, first of all, what did you think of Captain N the Game Master? If you have any memories of that. And did you, I guess any of you out there, did any of you have any similar types of, your own fan wank types of ideas for a big Nintendo crossovers, anything like that? Tell me your stories. I want to hear them. If you've got, you can leave some more thought out comments of like, this is what I came up with. If you have a whole thing, like let's hear it. I'm curious. I'd like to hear about, maybe we came up with a lot of the same generic ideas, or possibly even predicted some things that Nintendo eventually did, like the Master Core thing and all that. Who knows? But that'll do it. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you all next time. Yahoo!